Have you ever heard of assistive technology? Well, today we're going to take a look at some low, medium, and high-tech examples of this that I've had some personal experience with in my life.
Hi, I'm Beth Fox. Most of my doctors told me I'd never live to make it to 30, but here I am, living independently with multiple disabilities. So, welcome to my channel.
Let's start by defining what I mean when I use the term assistive technology or assistive devices. I mean tools that people with disabilities use to perform tasks that their disabilities would otherwise prevent them from performing. So assistive devices can range from anything low-tech like crutches to high-tech like CCTVs. You've probably already seen some of these just out and about. Let me know in the comments which ones you've seen before. Let's start with a low-tech item. My cane. My cane offers me safety because I have basically no depth perception because of the type of blindness that I have. I can sometimes infer depth because of shadows, but this isn't a reliable method. Without good depth perception, I could easily just roll right off a curb or over the top of a flight of stairs because it just looks completely flat to me.
With my cane, I'm able to feel the curb drop off and back up to safety. My cane also identifies me as a blind individual to drivers and other pedestrians. Now I want to show you guys what's called cane signals. So when I'm at an intersection with my cane, I can indicate to you as a driver what I as a blind pedestrian am preparing to do with just my cane. If my cane is out in step, or in my case at about a 45-degree angle in front of me, that means that I am prepared to cross and waiting for you as the driver to yield. So in that case, you as the driver should yield to me and give me my pedestrian right of way so that I can cross. However, if my cane is up vertical beside my body, parallel with my body, then that means that I as a blind pedestrian am waiting and observing traffic. It probably means that I'm new to this intersection and I might be waiting for an all clear, or I might just be waiting and observing the traffic. Regardless of what position my cane is in, it is never appropriate for you as the driver to yell at me, even if you're trying to yell that it is clear for me to cross. As a blind individual, I rely on my sense of hearing to tell me when it is safe to cross. So no matter what, it is never appropriate to yell at a blind individual at a crossing.
The next item we're going to talk about is crutches. You're probably most familiar with underarm crutches, which are the kind of crutches most people will use when they have a temporary disability, like a sprained ankle or a broken leg which can't bear weight. The crutches I use in my daily life are a little bit different. They are forearm crutches, which distribute the weight over more of my arm, which is a personal preference because of the muscular weakness that I experience as part of my chronic condition. I also like adding ribbons to mine to make them look pretty. Here's another item you might be more familiar with. It's a manual wheelchair, or as I and many others in the disability community like to call it, a hospital wheelchair, as it's primarily used by those with temporary disabilities and injuries. It is occasionally used by those with permanent disabilities, as it's maybe all that they can afford, but it's far from ideal as it's often uncomfortable and not designed for an individual body. I keep mine as a backup chair when my power chair breaks down. Most individuals with permanent disabilities who use a manual chair invest in a custom one that is built to their measurements and specifications, so it's more comfortable and easier for them to use and less likely to develop things like pressure sores. I wanted to talk to you guys about some wheelchair etiquette. So the main thing that I wanted to discuss is that it is never okay to come up and lay hands or start pushing somebody's wheelchair. The wheelchair is considered an extension of somebody's body. So coming up and pushing someone's wheelchair is akin to coming up and scooping an able-bodied person up in your arms. It's never okay. So if you see somebody struggling, it's great if you want to offer help. But you need to remember that it's an offer. So if they say no, you need to respect their no and continue on your way. So let me just leave you with this and emphasize this. It is never, ever okay to just come up to somebody in a wheelchair and start pushing without asking. The last low-tech assistive device I wanted to talk about is my walker. This is the primary item I use if I'm going to be actually walking around. It's got similar forearm grips to my crutches to help distribute my weight, and it's better for my posture than a typical walker. It also has a seat for when I go out. I can use that when I inevitably get tired. It also allows me to independently carry my vent bag, which I can't do when I have my crutches. And I'm safer with it because I can use it, since I push it in front of me, I can use it kind of like my cane to determine if there's a drop-off or other height change. The muscles in my legs are still very weak, so even with my walker, about 2 city blocks is the farthest I can go. So that's when I turn to medium-tech assistive devices like my power chair. My power chair is an off-the-rack folding power chair. And it only weighs about 50 pounds. However, most power chairs are custom built to the individual's measurements and specifications, and they weigh closer to 250 to 300 pounds, which means they have to be loaded on a vehicle with a lift or a ramp. In my town, this means I would have to rely 100% on the public transportation, and that's just not feasible. Fortunately, I've been able to avoid needing a custom chair as I'm able to spend enough time out of my chair to avoid getting pressure sores. And I've made a few modifications to my chair to make my time in it more comfortable. I added an extra cushion to the seat, crocheted some covers for the straps on my seatbelt and foot strap, and I added some piece of foam needle to the frame where my legs were rubbing against the middle frame. People often think that wheelchairs hold people like me back, but the truth is that my wheelchair gives me the freedom to get out, go places, and do things that I wouldn't be able to do otherwise, because I don't have the strength or energy to go very far on my own. The next medium tech device I rely on is my ventilator. This essentially works as my life support device. It allows me to trigger my own breaths if I can, but will also force a breath after a certain period of time if I don't trigger one. It doesn't give any oxygen, but rather filters and pressurizes the air around me. This allows me to fully inflate my lungs and works to support my lung function and helps my weak respiratory muscles. I also have my cough assist, or as I like to call it, my lung vacuum. This device fully inflates my lungs and then sucks out all the air and any gunk that might be in my lungs like a vacuum. It basically simulates a cough like an able-bodied person. These two devices are the main things that help keep me alive and out of the hospital. This is the last medium item I have for you guys. It's called a Perkins Brailler, and it's basically a typewriter for Braille. It's got 9 keys on the front. In the middle, we have a space bar, and then we've got the 6 Braille dot keys on either side, 1, 2, 3 to the left, and 4, 5, 6 to the right. And then to the far left, you have the return key, and to the far right, you have the backspace key. And other than that, it basically functions just like a normal typewriter would, and this is how you would type the Braille alphabet, which is displayed on your screen here. While Braille is a very important tool for most blind individuals, it's not the primary tool that I use for a variety of reasons. One of those being that I didn't didn't identify as blind until college, and so I didn't start learning Braille until I was in college. And by that point, I already had a system of reading that worked for me, and I was so busy academically that I didn't have time to do my Braille lessons justice. And I was already developing a condition called peripheral neuropathy, which meant that I had this numbness and tingling in my fingertips that got much worse as I tried to read Braille, a system of raised dots. While Braille is not one of the main tools that I use, it's a tremendous resource for individuals who are blind, and it's one of the main things that I advocate to young people who are blind and visually impaired, or the parents of kids who are blind. Since Braille doesn't work for me for reading for long periods of time, I use what's called a CCTV, or closed-circuit television, for this type of reading. And this is the first of the high-tech devices that I want to introduce you guys to. There are three main features that I use for my CCTV. The first is that I can rotate the camera down and turn on the zoom magnification so that I can read the print material with the little bit of vision that I have with the assist of magnification on the monitor here. Or I can turn on the OCR function, the optical character recognition, and I can have the CCTV then read the printed material to me.
Processing. Editor note, due to limited printing space, we could not fit the full text of our prose category honorable mention.
Or finally, if I'm in a classroom setting and I need to be able to see something that's far away, I can turn the camera and it will bring whatever the teacher has on the board or presentation to the monitor that is just a few inches in front of my face. When I don't have my CCTV and I need to see something at a distance, I can use the camera feature on my phone. Like when I was in the overflow room at church and I wanted to see what the pastor was writing on the whiteboard. My iPhone also has lots of other great built-in accessibility features, like the zoom that I use to magnify the phone of the screen so I can see things on the actual phone screen, a digital magnifier that I can use to use it like the near function on my CCTV. This is great when I need to fill out forms in the doctor's office and I don't want to share private information aloud with staff. Apple also has its own screen reader called VoiceOver, and this allows it has optical character recognition, so it'll read aloud whatever is on the screen. So I can use that like to read my Bible from my phone.
The glory of the Lord leaves the temple. 1. Then I looked, and behold, on the expanse that was over the heads of the cherubim there appeared above them something like a sapphire.
My laptop also has a lot of built-in accessibility features. The ones I use the most are the built-in zoom, the voiceover text-to-speech feature,
Pain perception occurs through the nociceptive, neuronal, and ascending and descending modulatory pathways. Acute.
and when my hands get really spastic, the dictation feature. You may have noticed that I rely on Apple products for my laptop and phone, and that's because Apple is the only tech company that has really solid accessibility features built in to their products. It wasn't always that way. When Apple first launched, they didn't have any accessibility features in their products. But the disability community organized a hard boycott of Apple, and it hurt Apple's sales enough that they did their research, and now they're kind of the gold standard of accessibility and assistive technology when it comes to everyday laptops and smartphones. And so it makes me really proud of my community and knowing that our voice was heard, even if only Apple heard us. Most non-Apple devices do have some built-in accessibility tools, but it's usually not enough for people with disabilities to rely on. So they end up having to license additional expensive software. They then have to pay for a new license every time they get a new machine. The most popular of these softwares that I've worked with in the past have been JAWS, which is a screen reader, and Dragon, which is a dictation software. This is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to assistive technology. There are so many more devices and things out there. So if you want to learn more, check out the links in the description. And if you want to hear more about the devices and assistive tech that I use, let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to share more. Until next time, Pink Vulpinites, choose kind, choose joy, and remember, you're never alone.